We're dinking around with Addy and Webby. Dinking around with Addy and Webby tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Dinking Around with Addy and Webby. I am Webby, not Eddie, and I've got some sad news, but I also have some exciting news for you all. Unfortunately, Eddie will not be here for this episode again. However, he will be back for the next episode, and we have a very fun guest lined up, so you are not going to want to miss that. But you're also not going to want to miss this episode because I have a very special co-host joining me for the entire thing, and I'm not even going to waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and bring her on right now. Not only is she a fellow pickleball lover, but she was also my mixed doubles partner throughout most of the summer in pickleball tournaments. And she's also my daughter. That's right. Please welcome to the show Addison, a.k.a. Addy of Addy and Webby. How's it going?
Pretty good. How's it going with you?
It's going good. This is pretty exciting for me. I never thought that you would, one, get involved in pickleball, and two, join me for the podcast. So this is very cool, very fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy the father-daughter dynamic that we bring to the table here with both of our tournament play and this podcast. But before we get started with our discussion, as you guys always know, I need to wet the palate before we get started. And normally, Eddie and I crack open a nice craft beer, but Addison is only 16 years old, so I feel like it's probably not the most appropriate for me to be drinking beer. Luckily, our friends at Northern Chill provided us with some nice, delicious water that we'll be sipping on throughout the episode. So without further ado, cheers, Addison. Very good, very refreshing. My palate is nice and wet, so I can go ahead and proceed with the episode. But like we usually do when we have a guest, and this is your first time on the show, how did you first get into pickleball? I'm sure a lot of people are interested how a young person like yourself got into it. How long have you been playing, and what made you start really liking pickleball?
I'd say it was probably about 6 years ago now. I started the same time you did, but obviously I didn't get into it as intensely as quickly.
Yeah.
When we first got it, I think we just found some cheap paddles online, and we were just trying it out with the family. And I mean, we thought it was fun, but I definitely, at that time, obviously too, pickleball was just like a leisure sport and not really a like competitive thing that it is now. And obviously it's like the fastest growing sport in the world. So we played it, and we did think it was a lot of fun, and then I kind of didn't think too much of it after that. I would play when it was a nice day out, and we would go play it just to have fun, get some exercise. But yeah, I'd say it was probably about 2 years ago now when I started like watching more of the videos online and the more serious tournaments, and you see people like my age, like Annalie Waters, getting out there, and she was like taking over the pickleball world, and she was taking over everything, and it just showed that like this isn't just a sport for old people. So that started getting me into it more, definitely seeing like role models like that and how it's not just an older person sport.
Yeah.
How it's definitely exercise, but also it's something that you can like make money off of now, and like there's tournaments and everything. So I thought that I would get into it more, and we started playing at Wolverine. That's where you see a lot of our tournaments that we play at. And they have a lot of low-level play, but they also go up to really high-level play. So we started at the bottom. They have it to where you can like choose who your partner is. So we started off playing it together, and that was definitely a good intro for me to get into it. And then slowly over time, we started going up to the higher-level play. And yeah, I definitely think that was helpful, having that place to be able to get some practice in. And yeah, it's like I was saying, it was probably about 2 years ago where I started playing more competitively. And it was just within this past year that I actually started doing my first actual tournaments, because I think it was like a year and a half or 2 years ago, they might be on the channel somewhere, where we just did like the little Memorial Day one where like it's just like a one and done kind of thing. But just within this past year, I started doing real like competitive tournaments where you have to like sign up ahead of time. You have to have your own like good paddles, and it's like the round robin style. And I definitely have been liking those. It was tough. You guys have seen on the channel, we don't always come out on top all the time, but it's definitely a good place to get that experience. And yeah, I definitely have been liking it a lot. And I did my first singles tournament this year, and we've been doing doubles. We started at 3.0, but we've done some 3.5 doubles too, and that's been a lot of fun.
Nice. But yeah, I've had an absolute blast getting a chance to play with you. And like Addison said, the first tournament she ever did, it was kind of like a very small thing that some friends put together on Memorial Day. That was probably like 3 or 4 years ago now. And it was just, like she said, a one and done type of thing. If you lose one game, you're out. And really, it was supposed to be an A-B tournament, like a randomized thing where you didn't know who you were going to play with. But they made an exception because Addison was so young at the time. I think she was only like 11, maybe 12 at the time. And so they made an exception. They let us play together, and then we got eliminated right away. But that was her first taste of a pickleball tournament experience. And then we do have a video, so if you click here or here, I always forget where it is, but it was funny because she's so young and so small, and you could tell she did not like the fact that we lost. She was not as good at handling a loss as I was.
Definitely like to think I've gotten better with that over time. I try to put a smile on, just have a good time, try to get over that more, but I was just rewatching those videos the other day. It's crazy how far we've come as a team, but I was like barely up to your shoulders, and now we're almost the same height. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me how much pickleball has changed in the last 6 years. Because like she said, we started at the same time 6 years ago. The first time I ever played, it was with Addison, my other daughter Kaylin, and then my wife Amber. And I got addicted immediately. They had fun with it, but something about it, like I was like, oh, I can see myself really getting into this. But as far as the four of us playing together, we didn't play a whole lot together much after that until recently. But at that point in time, it absolutely was more so known as an older person's sport. And for the first 2 years that I played, the only time I ever got a chance to play with anybody was at senior centers. So it was me and then people that were like a good 35, 40 years older than me. And most of them would destroy me on the pickleball court, but I didn't care. I was having a blast, so I didn't mind. I made a lot of legit friends with senior citizens, which I never thought would happen. So that was very interesting. But yeah, fast forward to now, it's a whole different scene out there now. In fact, most of the times when I play, I'm one of the older people in the groups that I play with, and that would have seemed unheard of when I first got started. But you also mentioned Annalie Waters. Like, she is a great role model for a lot of young up-and-coming athletes, and you guys are actually the exact same age. I think she's like maybe 2 or 3 months older than you, but you guys are right around the same age. So I do think stuff like that, people like Annalie Waters were a great motivating factor for people like Addison and other younger people to get involved in the sport. And I love how popular pickleball has become. I try to tell people 6 years ago that this sport it's like the best thing I've ever done, and most people just laughed at me, and everybody just always thought it was a senior citizen sport, or they had never even heard of it before. So it's insane how far it's come in the 6 years. But you talked about how we started getting involved in more competitive tournaments, and really this year Addison kicked it into high gear. She took some private lessons, started getting a lot better, and I never would have thought that she and I would have been able to ever play tournaments together because there was such a big gap in our skill levels. Because I've been like around the 3.5 to 4.0 level for a bit. I've been kind of stuck there, haven't really been able to advance too much, but she really upped her game, and she's probably more between 3.0 and 3.5, but it did get to the point where I felt if she really wanted to challenge herself, she could start doing 3.5 tournaments with me, and we started doing that. And let's go ahead and talk about our first tournament experience that we did together. That was at Wolverine Pickleball. Do you remember that tournament experience?
Yeah, I do. I know we were struggling in the beginning and everything, but I think it was our last 2 matches in a row was the ones that we came out on top. So that was pretty good for our first tournament. I think we went 2-6, which isn't too bad considering it was our first tournament together, and it was definitely more competitive because it was 3.5 level.
Yeah, and I was very happy with that outcome. Most people would not be happy with the 2-6 record, but this was her first like legit full-blown tournament, and it was a big one too because there were 9 teams. It was a round robin, so that meant we were guaranteed to play 8 games. And for her first tournament, I was quite nervous because first there's the stamina factor because she's not used to playing that much in one day in a tournament. Second, because it's a tournament, it was going to be a lot more cutthroat than usual. I kept telling you, like, you're used to rec play where sometimes people, they'll see you're a younger female player, they might take it easy on you and stuff like that. In tournaments, that's not the case. People do not take it easy in tournaments, and if they think you're the weaker player, you're going to get targeted. And that's what happened, but I mean, you really held your own. I mean, she did great, And I feel like I didn't even poach that much. Like I planned, like we stacked. That way I was going to be on the left throughout the game. And I told her I'm probably going to poach a lot just to try to keep us in the games. But I didn't even need to poach a lot. She did great at keeping us in it. And like she said, we had a rough start. But the last 2 games of the tournament, we did come home with victories to get a 2-6 record. And that's a much better record than I had my first few tournaments. So I think that's something to be proud of because that was a very high-level tournament. If you guys go back and watch that video, you'll see that was a very high-level group of players. So I was very proud to get 2 victories with you in that tournament. So that was really cool. And shortly after that, Addison wanted to challenge herself again and try doing her first singles tournament. And that happened at Livonia Athletic District. So tell us about that. How was your first singles tournament experience?
That's still my only singles tournament I've done to this date. I would definitely like to do some more singles tournaments. Again, considering it was my first singles tournament, I don't think it went bad. I think the level was 2.5 plus or 3.0, something like that. It was definitely lower level. I think it was tougher because I was going against some people who didn't know what their ranking was, so they just joined the lowest one that they knew because they were trying to figure out where they should be. So that was definitely a little tougher because I was one of the only females in that tournament. So the only match that I won was against another female. There was 5 teams total, including me. So I only had 4 games. I only won 1 game, but still, for my first singles, that wasn't bad for winning at least 1 game.
Yeah, that was another one where I thought you held your own very well. And that's tough. Singles tournaments are very tough. Anybody out there that has done a singles tournament, you know what I'm talking about. You have to have a lot more stamina. It's a totally different game. Singles and doubles in pickleball, it's way different. I feel like singles pickleball is a lot more like tennis. And yeah, like I definitely thought you did good. I do think you were the unfortunate victim to people that were playing in a level that they probably should have done a little bit higher. But like you said, they didn't know any better. They were new to tournaments, so they didn't know what level they should do. So they did this beginner division tournament. But I do think there were a couple of guys that maybe should have done a little higher level. But they didn't know any better, so I don't really fault them for that. But you did well. I do think if you were able to do a legit 3.0 singles tournament with all females like at a normal tournament, I think you would have a very good outcome. So hopefully you get a chance to do that sometime soon. So after that singles tournament experience of yours was what I would say my favorite tournament experience that I have ever had all throughout my pickleball journey so far, and that was the West Michigan Paddle Battle in Holland, Michigan. Addison and I teamed up for that. This one was for charity, and it wasn't as cutthroat as most tournaments, so it wasn't divided by specific skill level. It wasn't like 3.5, 4.0, 4.5, stuff like that. They had beginner, then they had intermediate casual, intermediate competitive, and advanced. And since Addison was still so new to doing competitive tournaments, we ended up signing up for intermediate competitive, and I felt like that would probably be good. I reached out to the tournament director ahead of time just to say, like, would it be appropriate for me to compete in this along with my daughter who was newer, and they agreed that that would be a good division for us. So we did that. It was Father's Day weekend, and it was the weekend of Addison's 16th birthday. So it was just a really cool and memorable weekend, but add a pickleball tournament to that, and it just made it even that much more special. And once we started playing, we quickly realized the other teams were very good. There were a couple teams that maybe seemed a little newer to pickleball, but for a majority of the teams, they played very well. They were very tough, and almost every match that we were involved in was very close back and forth. Didn't know who was going to win till the end. What did you think about that tournament experience?
This was probably my favorite tournament we've done. I may be a little biased considering this was our only tournament that we've gotten a medal in. But that being said, it was also the most tiring and the most long tournament we've done. I think we ended up playing a total of 10 or 11 games.
It might have actually been 12 now that I think about it. We did the full round robin portion, then we went to the playoffs portion. It might have been 12. I could be wrong, but there was at least 11, possibly even 12 games that we played that day.
And there wasn't all just normal games to 11. There was some games to 15 in there. So that made it longer too. It was very hot, so the sun obviously beating down on us that whole day. we didn't get much of a break either between matches because there was so many matches. We had like the qualifying rounds in the beginning to see where you're kind of placed at for the like semi-quarterfinals and all those rounds. So it was pretty fast-paced going through everything. I remember after that tournament was over, we went out to lunch and I fell asleep in the restaurant at the table because I was just so drained from that day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very tiring but very rewarding experience. As Addison said, we did come home with a medal. And not only was it a medal, it was the gold medal. Anybody watching the video version of the podcast, you can see right here, gold medals, baby. But man, that was so cool. And like Addison said, we only lost one match the entire day. And the team that beat us, that was a super close back and forth game. They were a great team. It was a co-ed tournament, so some of the teams were male and female. Some were 2 males, some were 2 females. The only team that beat us that day, it was a team of 2 females that were very solid players. And then we ended up seeing them later on in the playoff round and another back and forth battle. And they took a big lead. I thought they were going to knock us out of the tournament, but luckily we were able to rally back. Addison was definitely the VIP of that match, and she kept us alive, kept us going, and we ended up with the victory, and then we won every game after that.
We lost the first game against those 2 female players, and then when we came back and beat them that second time, that was probably one of my favorite wins and matches we've ever had, because the first match we had against them when they beat us, it was very back and forth. It went over a few points because of how it was tying, and then we had to do the win by 2. And it was very back and forth. That was one of the longest matches I've ever played. I think it ended up, I think that game was only supposed to go to 11, but that one ended up going to like 15. That one was really long. And obviously that defeat was very hard for us, but also it was like exciting that like we just had that crazy, like that was a good match. And that was one of those defeats where when it was over, you just had nothing but respect for the other team because of how hard fought both teams played. And then when I found out that we had to play them again, I definitely got a little nervous because I knew that was going to be another hard-fought battle. And I didn't know if we were going to be able to come out on top. I knew we were going to try our best. We were losing at first, and then we started making the comeback. And that was one where it was a nail-biter right up until the end. Another really close one. I think we only beat them by 2 points because that was what you needed to win. But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite victories because it was like we kind of had a little rivalry going from the last match. We wanted our revenge and they wanted to solidify their spot in the finale. But yeah, that was definitely a crazy, bittersweet victory.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so cool. And like you said, the first match that they just barely beat us, and that was one of those losses where it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, because the match was so close, it's the kind I don't mind losing just because it was a great match. Like if it's, I hate losing in a blowout. In fact, I mean I hate winning in blowouts too. Like when it's not close, if it's very lopsided with the score, I'm not a big fan of those games. But games like that, I can't help but respect the outcome. And yeah, it was very sweet getting a chance to play against them again. Seeming like we were down and out, but coming back and winning, that was super, super sweet. We got our revenge. Very, very cool experience for us. A great win. But all good things must come to an end. And after that tournament, we had our craziest tournament weekend ever. We had a 3.5 mixed doubles tournament in Livonia. And then the following day, we had another 3.5 mixed doubles tournament in Ann Arbor. And they were both very, very tough 3.5 divisions, and both of them had 9 teams, so that meant we were going to be playing 8 games, and it was very, very hot both days. And they were indoor tournaments, but neither of them have air conditioning, so very hot and muggy indoors, so not the most ideal playing conditions. So we really tested ourselves in those tournaments, and let's talk about that. How did that go? The one in Livonia at Livonia Athletic District. Do you recall how that day went for us?
I think we ended up getting 2 wins. I think we ended up going 2-6 again.
Yep, that's right. We went 2-6. Our main goal was to defeat our record at the previous tournament, which was 2-6. Unfortunately, we did not beat that record, but we came home with the same record. So we also went 2-6. Very, very tough division. And then the following day, we were still feeling it from the previous day. We were fatigued, we were tired, but that wasn't going to stop us. We were up for the challenge. So the next day, we did another 3.5 mixed doubles tournament. This time it was at Wolverine Pickleball Warehouse in Ann Arbor. Another super tough division. And, oh, man, that was a tough one for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of when our losing streak started to go down.
Yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of a losing streak that started for us when it came to tournament play. Unfortunately, we went 0-8, so we didn't get any wins. We didn't play bad, though. Like, I thought we played very well. Just the other teams were really, really good. And there were a couple games where it looked like we were going to win. Like, we started with a good lead, but then we blew it, and then the other team beat us. So we went home 0-8 and kind of deflated all the momentum we had from that big win that we had over in Holland. So then after that, we had one more tournament that we were signed up for the year, and we just so desperately wanted to end our losing streak. So we did the Bridge to Charity tournament in Zilwaukee. It was actually in Saginaw, but it was near the Zilwaukee Bridge. And how did that one go for us?
Under the circumstances, I think that it was a pretty good tournament. I have been having some knee issues lately, so that was playing a factor. We didn't have as much practice before the tournament, and also the night before we went to the tournament, we actually went to the WWE SummerSlam event that was here in Detroit, so we didn't even get home till around 1:30 in the morning. And the tournament was about an hour and a half away, so we were in bed around 1:30, and then our alarms were going off around 4:30 because we had to get up and start getting ready to go to the tournament. So it's definitely, the sleep factor was not on our side. But yeah, when we got there, I think there was only 3 other teams, but we played each team 2 times. So that was a total of 6 games. I think we went 1-5. Which isn't bad considering my knee. I've been having bad knee issues lately, so my knee was like triple the size it normally is, and also we only were running on like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. So all things considered, I think we still played pretty good considering we had no practice, no sleep, and an injury against us. But yeah, that was our most recent tournament we've done, and yeah, I've been taking a little break since then to tend for the knee, getting the help that I need. I don't think I've played any pickleball since then, not even rec play.
Yeah, so like you said, the odds were definitely stacked against us in regards to doing well in that tournament. We actually hadn't even planned on going to SummerSlam. I just happened to win tickets to it. We really wanted to go to SummerSlam, but it was so expensive we weren't planning on going. But then I ended up winning tickets at my work, so we were like, heck yeah, we're going, even if we're going to have to sacrifice getting a good night's sleep before this final tournament of the year for us. We definitely felt like it was worth it. However, the pay-per-view, it went way longer than we expected it to, for one.
It was crazy, too, because WWE pay-per-views, anybody that watches them know, they're usually, like, lately, they've been usually done around 11, maybe 12 at the latest, but this one didn't end till 12:30, almost 1, and then we had a 45-minute drive back home with traffic from everybody leaving, because I think they said there was, like, 40
over 50,000 people were there in attendance.
A lot of people there.
Yeah.
So that was obviously hectic getting out. So yeah, it was crazier than if we would have even gone to any other normal WWE event.
Right. But it was a very fun event. I'm very glad we went to that. SummerSlam was awesome. Very cool event. But like Addison said, we had a very early start the next morning. Our division was the first division of the day, which means it started at 8 a.m., and due to construction, it was actually more of a 2-hour drive we had ahead of us. So, yeah,
anyone in Michigan knows there's always construction going on.
Yeah, I think from the time I laid down in bed, if I would have slept straight through from the moment I laid my head on the pillow to when my alarm went off, it would have been 3 hours of sleep that I would have gotten max. So, luckily, my wife agreed to drive us so we could try to rest on the drive. Unfortunately, I feel like I still didn't even sleep much on the drive there because I was still wired from the night before. The SummerSlam excitement was still going through my body. So
I think I slept the whole ride there and then the whole ride back.
Yeah, Addison's a lot better sleeper than I am when it comes to that kind of thing. But So we got there, we got to the tournament, and then, like she said, we had a bit of a losing streak again. We didn't play bad, but the other teams played better. But luckily, the very last game of the day, we were able to pull out a victory, end our losing streak because we had lost a lot of tournament games in a row. So at least we ended with a bang. We may not have medaled. We may not have had a great record, but we ended our losing streak. So I always like to find the positive and find a victory in some way every tournament that I do. And I think that was a huge victory to end our losing streak because that was not so good. Unfortunately, Addison is dealing with her knee injury. Hopefully that will be getting better soon so we can get back to training together. And then maybe we can sneak in a tournament or two before this year ends. If not, we'll try and come back with a vengeance next year for the tournaments. But this has been awesome playing together in tournaments. Like I said before, I never would have thought that Addison and I would have been close enough in skill level to be able to play competitively in tournaments. But Addison really stepped up her game. We've played together, done some tournaments, had some success, went home with a gold medal in a very competitive tournament. I'm super proud of this. But yeah, that's where we are in our tournament journey at the moment. One thing I wanted to bring up, I'm not sure if any of you tuned into this yet, but Addison and I did a paddle review for some paddles that are sold at the store called Five Below. I'm sure most of you out there know the store I'm talking about. It's a very cool store. Like everything there is $5 or less. It's like almost like a dollar store with just much, much higher quality stuff because some of the stuff goes up to $5. So it's 5 times the quality.
They have
in theory.
$10 stuff too now.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I feel like nothing, even dollar stores, not everything is just a dollar
It's Five
anymore.
Below with a $10 section.
Yeah. Five Below-ish is what they should be called. But anyway, Addison had told me that they had pickleball paddles there, so I went there. Sure enough, they do. I bought them, and we did a full-blown paddle review. And in case you haven't seen it, anybody watching the video version of the podcast, I'm holding it right here. Basically, it's a joke of a paddle. I mean, for them to be able to call this a pickleball paddle is kind of ridiculous. How thin it is. It's thinner than a ping pong paddle. It's crazy. And I always said, or when I first laid eyes on it, I wondered how long it would last before it would break. And sure enough, during our review, we found out it does not last long before it breaks because the thing just snapped in half. It flew out of her hand. We did a full in-depth paddle review. We actually took it seriously. Like we wanted to see like how are these paddles? Is there a chance that they could be good for people brand new to pickleball? And we got our answer to that question. However, I did get the idea while doing this review that it could be fun to use these paddles in future episodes of Webby versus Everybody. And if you're not familiar with that series, that's where I play a singles match against a very high-level player, sometimes even pro-level players. And I've done a couple episodes now where I had the pro player use this paddle. The first one that was brave enough to use this paddle was Sydney Sunday. Unfortunately, she had the same outcome that we had during our review of the paddle, and the paddle broke. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and enhance the paddle and add some duct tape to it. So anybody watching the video version, you can see my fancy duct tape enhancement that I made to the paddle. And I've got to tell you, it's crazy how good this paddle works. I mean, I think I've played against 5 people now that use this paddle, and it hasn't broken once. So that just shows how good duct tape is. Duct tape really can fix almost anything. This is the proof. But stay tuned. We got a bunch of more fun videos of Webby versus Everybody where I play against pro-level players using the Five Below paddle. They are super fun episodes, so you do not want to miss those. But what did you think about that experience when we did the review of these paddles?
I think our professional review, we had a pretty good prediction about what would happen. We had our sniff test that showed we had a good prediction ahead of time, our professional opinion. I think that was a really fun video to film. We obviously knew going in that it wouldn't be super great paddle just based on the looks and the price. We figured you'd get what you paid for.
Yeah.
It was a fun and interesting video. Definitely a lot. We knew it would be quick, but it was a lot quicker than we thought it would be to film that.
Yeah.
We didn't get too far with the paddles. And we aren't even the pro players who I'm sure are hitting the paddle with they're hitting the ball with a lot more force.
Oh,
and
yeah.
with me, it only took one return from it to get it to snap.
Yeah, we hadn't even finished doing our drills. We hadn't even started playing a game yet. I did my first serve attempt. She did the return. On the return, the thing just broke. We have a really cool video shot of the paddle breaking and flying out of her hand, a nice slow motion shot. So you should definitely check out the video. It was a lot of fun to make. But before we say farewell on this episode of the podcast, I just want to find out, like, are you a fan of pro pickleball? And if so, do you have like any favorites, like people that you really enjoy watching in the pro pickleball world?
Like I already mentioned, I like watching Annalie Waters and following her with Ben Johns. That's a pretty good team. The Johns brothers.
A pretty good team, yeah. They win almost every match they play in, but yeah.
I got to meet a lot of the pickleball pros at we went to the PPA event when they were on tour. They came to Ohio. So that was definitely cool to get to meet some of them. I liked a lot of them, meeting them in person. I like Anna Bright, Leah Jansen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All great players. Yeah, that was the PPA Cincinnati event that we went to last year. That was super fun. Neither of us played in it. We just went there to spectate. My wife and my other daughter joined us, and that was a lot of fun. But in regards to pro pickleball, I'm sure, as everybody knows, the pro tour wars are in full force right now. Are you very familiar with what's going on with that whole thing?
I'm not really too into it. I do follow the pro world, but I haven't heard too much about the wars going on.
Okay. Well, we're actually going to be talking about the pro tour wars and just the state of pro pickleball in general, in depth, on the next episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Addy will be back finally, and we will have a very special, fun guest joining us as well. You are definitely not going to want to miss that. But that's about all I have for topics for today. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we part ways?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on the podcast. I definitely like to be back on again. And all the viewers, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to share it with your friends, your family, all the other pickleball lovers out there, anybody else. Make sure to comment down below what you thought, or if you have any questions or suggestions or anything. And yeah, make sure to stay tuned for all the good videos to come.
Nice. Look at that. She's a pro. This is her first time ever being on the podcast. I feel like she's doing better at promoting and reminding people to subscribe and follow and all that good stuff. But no, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad you were able to join me for this episode. If you guys want to see Addy join me again in the future on an episode when Addy can't make it, let us know in the comments below. We can definitely make that happen. If there's any certain topics you want to get a nice young take on from a young pickleballer, it's always interesting to hear what new, young, fresh takes are in this crazy world of pickleball.
Maybe we could turn this into Dinking Around with Addy and Webby.
Oh, hey, there we go. That's an idea. If you guys like that idea, let us know. Put comments down below. But that's going to do it for us here today. And until next time, this is Webby and Addy signing off.
Sir. Well, we're dinking around with Addy and Webby. Dinking around with Addy and Webby tonight.
Oh yeah.